Welcome, fam, to the week 8 of the 2023 season in the FFFL recap. And I am joined by a special guest here. What is your name, young sir?
Louis Logis, Licho.
Oh, Licho, good to have you on, Louis. Good to have you on. And thank you for hopping on. I really do appreciate that.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Louis, I'm going to embarrass you before we start this whole thing. Um, Truly, you have been one of my favorite people in this whole thing. You started, this is only your second year doing fantasy football. And I think that you've shown you're so good at it. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I actually think you're really good at it. I got, and so good that I heard that you started in another league. You're now in two leagues this year. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yep.
Okay. How are you doing in your other league?
4-4.
4-4. Okay. But you're
Yep.
doing it. I mean, you're right there in the thick of it. Now, let me ask you this. Are you scoring really well, but you're just going up against, big hitters, or is your team kind of so-so?
No, I've been nailing 120 plus about every week, but I've
Okay.
run into some walls.
So how is their league different than our league?
That one's you got 12, you can play an extra quarterback and you got a kicker.
Okay. So they is it 12 teams? Is that what you're saying? Or is
10,
it
only 10.
10 teams? You have it's two quarterbacks instead of one quarterback.
Right. If you want. Or you can
Oh,
play.
got it. So they're
Yeah.
doing what's known as the super flex.
Yes. Yes.
So for all of you out there who don't know what super flex is, it is legitimately where the flex position, think about our flex position, but you could also play a quarterback if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's basically the difference there. And it is actually a completely different way to play because what it does is it puts a huge value on quarterbacks. So I'm assuming in that league when you drafted that quarterback, like the top quarterbacks are taken in the first round.
Yeah. They went fast.
Yeah. So that is interesting because I don't know if it's been brought up for our league quite yet or not for a rule change, but that is a big difference because people don't realize it because you want to get a top quarterback because you can then go earlier on and get another quarterback because as you said, Louis, you could play two quarterbacks, and as you all see in our leagues, I mean, a bad week for a quarterback is a good week for a wide receiver, you
Yep.
know. So, do they do a full point per reception or half point per reception like us?
Hell, I don't know, Greg. I
That's
didn't
all
pay
right.
attention to that.
But it sounds like you're doing pretty well in that. But
Yeah.
being your second year in doing it, anything that you've adjusted from year one to year two to make it any different?
I probably try to pay a little bit more attention,
Okay.
and I'll go on every day to see if there's any players out there that maybe I can pick up or maybe get rid of one and pick up another one. And I will have to say I've got quite a few players that I've picked up after the draft that have actually done me fairly well.
Yeah. I would say the same. I think you picked up Adam Thielen after the draft.
Yeah.
Someone shamefully dropped him and you picked him up and he's been awesome. Like
He's,
he's been awesome.
so that, and last week I won in the other league, but my kicker and my defense outscored my quarterback and my two running backs. And I had Mahomes.
Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, Mahomes had a terrible day.
Yes.
Had the flu, and then I even saw a photo of him with like his left hand was just bloody all over.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he
Got
busted
stepped
that up
on.
too. Oh, did
Yeah.
he?
Yeah. He got
Yeah.
stepped on.
And that's a little rough too. Um, but now the last question I'll ask you before we get into the meat and potatoes of this. So you have two leagues now. So you have two teams. How does it feel because now you are actually running into kind of rooting for and against a guy sometimes at the same time. How
Oh,
does that feel?
yes. You just, I just hope it kind of evens out somehow to where I hit that level spot.
Yeah,
That ain't always the case.
it's rare that seems to happen, with all that. It's kind of tough, but that's always one of the things when you play multiple leagues. It can get to that point of I'm in too many. I already know it. I'm in way too many, and you almost if you're in too many, you just got to give up on that thought. You can't even think about it because it don't matter because you're gonna feel gut wrenched no matter what. So doesn't even matter. Two, I could probably do. I could do it like you, but even then, you're gonna come across a time where you got one guy in your league and now your opponent has him in the other and you're like
Yep.
so usually it's those later games where you can think about it and you can say okay, well, in the FFFL I only need like 5 points, so maybe he just has kind of a down game, so that way in my other league I can win because
Well,
yeah.
I had that this last week. I had Williams for Denver, the
Okay.
running back, and I had him in my other league, and I think Bob had him, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
So it was, I'm pulling for him here and saying, shit, I hope you don't do nothing over here.
No. Yeah, it's fun. It makes it, I guess, a little bit more fun in that sense too. But it is gut wrenching every time because you just try to think of like what ways could this work for me, and you're hoping for that.
Only two, Greg. There'll be no more than two for me.
Okay, I wish I could tell you that that is how it's going to be for me, but Allison knows me too well to know it probably won't happen that way. Well, I know I'll drop one next year, and then the other one I'll probably just kind of feel like, yeah, I'll do it. That's fine. Then I'll be in three next year, so I'll at least drop one. Okay, Allison. Okay, I'm telling you. All right. Well, let's get into the actual games that happened this week, and kind of talk about a few other things in the games coming up this following or this week that we're in. Shoot, tomorrow kind of kicks off week 9 for us. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and let's get this slideshow going, sir. Because we are in week 9 and we are recapping week 8. So we're going to talk about the week 8 matchups that just happened. We'll start with our ass whooping and work our way down to the nail biter. We'll get into Dr. Sam's injury report. I did the waiver wire episode yesterday. I know it just helped so many people. they, I did see at least some of the players I mentioned get taken in the waivers this past or that ran yesterday. Then we'll get into Trade Central. No trade to talk about, but I did want to kind of pick your brain as someone who's newer to fantasy football, and maybe how you view trades and how you view like kind of your maneuvering in general as a manager. Then we'll touch on our comments of the week, and then we'll wrap up with the upcoming matchups in week 9. This week was really an interesting week. It was a very high scoring week in general. I mean, all the teams played, so we had a lot of high scores, and therefore maybe some disparity in our scores. And really, we actually had, I want to say, Louis, there were 4 games decided by 25 points or more in our league, and that's a pretty good amount of games. And a lot of them had some good high scores, and some of you lost even with a good high score. So
Yeah.
that kind of feels tough. You're one of those teams, Louis. We'll get to that, but first we got to go with the ass whooping, Louis. And this week's ass whooping was delivered by EJ to Kyle, letting him know I'm now part of the family, and you're gonna have to respect me. That's really what I think he said there. Any takeaways that you had from this game, or anything that you saw that maybe you're like, that's why he won, or something that you might see that's not as consistent that actually happened?
He got, I think EJ had some players that just stepped up and they hit at the right time.
Yeah.
I don't
He,
think Kyle's got a bad team.
no, not at all. Look, he put up 120 points. That's
Yeah,
good.
but it's just EJ was hitting on all 8 cylinders, man. They were rolling.
Yeah, I mean, because Kyle would have beat, I think I calculated 7 of the 12 teams, so 7 of the other 11, that he could play, he would have beat. So to your point, it was still a good showing by Kyle, and so that always hurts, when you feel that way. But you're right. I mean, on EJ's side, his running backs combined for almost 90 points, the three
Yes.
of them. And if you add Dak on top of that, that means that technically, if he doesn't play any of his receiving options, meaning his wide receivers are tight end, um, he still beats Kyle because he would have had, I think, 120 and he didn't even have to play his defense. He would have had 120 plus with just his quarterback and his running back. So four players combined for 120 plus points. Like that makes me sad for what I put up this week.
Dak's the one that surprised me.
Agreed. You're a Cowboy fan, so I mean
Yes, I
you.
am, and he is so goddamn man. He's he's so unpredictable sometimes.
Yeah, CeeDee
You
Lamb then
know.
had a good game because of that too. But Tony
Yes.
Pollard's, but on the other opposite end, so you think they're kind of playing opposite ends, right? So for Dak to do well normally doesn't mean that Tony Pollard also does well, and vice versa at times. And so Kyle has Tony Pollard, who in a blowout win, you'd think, hey, if you said the Cowboys scored 43 points, anybody would have thought it. Tony Pollard at least has one of those touchdowns, if not two, and
Yeah.
he's got a good game. But what's happening there, Louis? I think Pollard has not lived up so far to where he was drafted in fantasy football. Do you feel like he's like it's Tony Pollard's issue, or do you feel like it's a team issue with that?
No, I feel like it's a Dak issue.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't think he puts him in a good enough spot all the time.
Okay.
To be honest with you, if they had to where he was hitting his passes like he should, I think that would open Tony up.
That makes more sense. Honestly, that
But
does make sense.
he's just not consistent. I don't think he's consistent.
Yeah, and he hasn't really been consistent as a fantasy option this year. So EJ played
No.
him because I mean I think in your other options, my other option for it would have been Goff. I wouldn't have gone with Jordan Love because I don't think Love has really performed as that well, and I think his numbers are oddly inflated, and he looks better than what he actually is for Jordan Love. But Goff he could have played over Dak, but he decided to go with Dak, and he made the right move. But shoot, has Dak scored over 20 points maybe but one other time so far
Yeah,
this
he
year?
has.
I don't know.
He's man. He's just.
Yeah. But you
And
have Dallas's defense, so I mean, a lot of times they're even getting in good spots because of that defense, or they're getting way up because of that defense, right? So I mean, that's where it's been a bit of an odd year for the Cowboys on the offensive end, considering how well that their team overall has played. But
you're right. But when you get down in the red zone, you should be scoring touchdowns and not having to kick field goals.
yep, completely
And
agree with that.
it's like if they got to kick a field goal, it's like, no big deal. We'll do it, and off they go.
Yeah, and you as a fan, I can understand being a little irritated by that view of it, at least. McCarthy, I'm not a big McCarthy fan either. I'll
Me
say
neither. Me neither.
that. So maybe they'll change that. But
I think Kamara, he's going to get stronger as the year goes on.
yeah, he had 3 game suspension or 4 game suspension, so
Yes,
he's back off of that. But he has been lights out.
and he's getting stronger.
And there's really not much run from any other running back when he's playing. Even Jamal Williams, the backup, isn't really getting much opportunity because Kamara's just doing well. And ETN looks good. He's been good all year. ETN has. Gus Edwards, I don't know that to me that wasn't something that's very sticky. Even though Gus has had 2 good weeks in a row,
Yeah,
but he's very game script dependent. And he's a ground and pound kind of running back. I love watching him run, but I don't know he ain't gonna get 30 points from Gus Edwards very often, very often. So maybe to your point earlier, Louis, all 8 cylinders were hitting at the same time. Everybody kind of, had their game, and it actually led EJ to have the high point of the week, and that's his third time in a row of getting the high points of the week. So coming in hot, EJ. Been very, very interesting. Very interesting year for EJ being that way of having 3 weeks of high point, but then he'll have other weeks where he's hoping to get 100. He's hoping to get
Yeah, yeah.
so very, very interesting. But we'll move on. Kyle, we won't talk about your ass whooping anymore. So we'll move on to the next game, which really was close to an ass whooping. This was Allison kind of whooping up on Tyler, and Tyler again. 109 would have beat, about half our league, this
Yeah,
week. It was not like he had this terrible game, but Allison, she put up almost 140. I think was the second highest total of the week. Was Allison, and Jameer Gibbs on that Monday night game definitely helped her get to that that huge point total that she ended up getting at. But
yes.
any takeaways that you had from this game?
You know, not really, I guess, because I didn't. No.
From my end, I'll say this: Miles Sanders. I don't know what's going on in Carolina. He seems like he's not healthy. They paid him a good amount of money to be there, but he's had this groin injury, and I feel Tyler's paying this week because I got a zero from him because in the league I played him, you don't get any credit for carrying the ball, so he got a whopping zero. Whereas even for ours, point 0.4 points for who was supposedly the starting running back for the Carolina Panthers. I think he touched the ball twice. He got 2 rushes. That was it. So that one hurt Tyler. And then obviously Indy's D cost him 6 points. So you have two players there that combine you for a negative 5.5. That's already going to put you in a hole right there. Because, I mean, Joe Burrow played well. Kittle gives him a good game. Diggs, a down game for Diggs because he didn't score a touchdown, but Diggs
Right.
still had like 7 or 8 catches that game. So it wasn't like that was, I think he had 7 catches for 70 yards. McLaurin had a good game. Saquon had a good game. Josh Downs as your third wide receiver gets you double digits. So it's like all those things make you feel good, like he's doing well. But Miles Sanders really hurt the negative points on the defensive end. He isn't going to reach her at that point. He's not going to beat her. But I think Tyler feels better about his team when he sees 120, on there 125 instead of the 109 that he sees, at that point. What do you think
I
about
think,
Allison's team? Oh, sorry. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was just going to say that Allison has put together a nice team.
Yeah.
And there you go again. If you look at the what the numbers are putting up there,
Yeah.
they're kind of consistent.
AJ Brown, 6 weeks in a row of 125 yards or
Yes.
more. That's huge. That as you all know, like also gives you a bonus. I think over 100 yards is an extra point, just for that. But you're right. Like she's getting really consistent play there. She made a really smart move to. She had Gerald Everett, the tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, but he was playing the later game, that Sunday night game, and he was questionable. So she was debating whether or not to start Jonnu Smith over him just in case he didn't make it. Um, but then she realized, like, well, Donald Parham is still in free agency. And so if Gerald Everett doesn't play, I just drop Gerald Everett, I pick up Parham, and I still have the tight end for the Chargers. So I thought that was a really smart move.
Yep.
And he
Yep.
got her a dozen points. He gets a touchdown, So to me, that was while it didn't make a difference, like that 12 points technically isn't what wins it for her. To me, that's like the smart move that you make, especially in those later games when you have somebody who's questionable and they may not play, and you're like, well, what do I do? Do I play a person I don't believe in as much early on because I know that at least they'll get me something, or do I cross my fingers and hope that Aaron Jones' hamstring issue isn't a thing and he
Yeah.
plays?
No,
It's that kind of stuff.
she's put together a nice team. And
Yeah,
this,
she's doing well.
this time of year, you got the buys out there,
Yeah.
and that can be a killer for you.
Yeah, and she moves now to 6-2. She's right behind you in the East. I mean, you're leading by far in points, which is what's putting her at second place. But technically, you both have the same record, so
Yeah.
he's doing well for the second year in a row. Hurting me. It hurts me, man. Like she's just my wife is better than me at this thing, and I study it.
So I see she's got Dobbs too. and he just didn't he just get traded?
Yeah, so now he plays for the Minnesota Vikings and is their
Oh
starting quarterback.
man,
So that's a good point. I didn't think about that, but that's interesting. I mean, I don't know how often he gets any run with Herbert being our starting quarterback, and he's really good. But you're right. I mean, Dobbs has other people, and if Justin Jefferson comes back, that's he might be another nice quarterback to have.
yeah,
So that's interesting. But yeah, she whooped up on Tyler, beat him by 30.5 points. Sorry, Tyler. It was a good week, honestly. Other than those two players we mentioned, everybody else for your team played well, man. Be proud of
yeah, they
that. Be
did.
happy for that. So stick with it. I know it's tough to lose again, but man, you had a much better week this week, and he's actually had some better weeks as of late, especially with Saquon Barkley coming back. So to me, he worries me. He beat me, right? So his one win was against me, so he beats me. And his last, I think, then he loses. Um, he lost last week, but it was a good showing. And this week, the same thing. So Tyler, keep it up. You're doing well. Just keep plugging forward. Now we'll get to the other 30 point beating. That was Andy. Shoot, he's been having a rough one. So Andy gets off the schneid a bit by beating Glenn. Glenn's been hurting bad. He just literally his team's hurting, and then he's hurting. So it was kind of a rough one there. But I'm sure you and Andy maybe talked a little bit about it. Any insights that you can share about this
Yeah,
matchup?
it sucks what happened to Cousins, but
Yeah,
you know,
that's tough. Maybe he trades for Dobbs. Maybe he wants the Minnesota quarterback. Who knows?
well, he's got Trevor Lawrence, but
Yeah,
he's
which
going to have to
unfortunately is on
go
bye this
in.
week. But
You know, Andy's got some good players.
agreed. Just haven't played as well. Like they've kind of underperformed, to
Okay,
what
so
they can do.
you take CD Lamb. CD Lamb's a problem of Prescott,
Sure. Yeah.
not getting all the points he should get because
Yeah.
shit, you can't get him the ball.
Yeah.
So
And what a good player. CD Lamb is a top receiver in this league. I mean, he is I think CeeDee Lamb, like if you break it down, I think he's in that like second tier of wide receiver. And that first tier is like a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill. You got those guys. But
yeah,
to me, CeeDee Lamb comes in that next tier. I think to me, he's right after like an AJ Brown type of player. I think you get in that
yeah,
CeeDee Lamb area at that point. So like you said, Dak has a good game, and obviously CD comes right along with that to have a
yeah,
good game, which is
yeah,
huge for Andy because Goddard didn't play well. Houston, it was a weird game for Stroud and Houston Texans. I was surprised at how poorly they did, especially coming off of the bye week. That was a little interesting to me that they didn't perform as well. But Nico Collins is normally playing much better than that. And shoot, Aaron Jones, if he can get Aaron Jones right, I think that becomes a big boom bust player for you. But Aaron Jones is known to put up 25 to 30 in some games. So we'll see if he can get right. And on Glenn's side, I don't even know where to start with him. I mean, you got Eckler back; he's performed better, but outside of that, he's had a lot of injuries. Hopefully people come back for him. It's just been a tough run for Glenn so far.
yeah.
Even
It
his
has.
running backs. What do you think? I mean, I feel like he's got a good stable of running backs, and when Khalil Herbert comes back, to me, that's four fairly solid, running back options he's got.
Pierce hasn't done really squat all year.
Yeah, he's been weird. He's had maybe one or two good games, but otherwise been
Yeah,
underperforming as well.
yeah,
But he's got talent, so that's where it's that's a different thing. But Devin Singletary's getting more run than you'd think. Yeah, so that one's tough. But Ramondre's also been up and down. Ramondre Stevenson, you'd think you'd get more out of him, but Ezekiel
I
Elliott's taken away some opportunities there too.
I see he had Jerry Judy on the bench, and he just scored his first touchdown.
Did he really? Is that what it was? Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
yep, yep, just scored his first one.
if I'm not mistaken, he usually plays pretty well against Kansas City. Like, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, Judy actually has good games against him, but he hadn't played well so far this year, so you're not going to play him. I get that. And the only thing I would say is, honestly, I think moving forward, he plays Cole Kmet even with Justin Fields out because it looks like Bajent is passing Cole Kmet's way. It seems like I actually like Bajent so far and what he's done for the Bears and in his backup role for Fields. But I'm noticing that he is using Komet a lot more as that um, as his kind of insurance guy. Even if the play isn't designed just for Komet, if it breaks down, he's looking Komet's way, and so
But
Komet
he's
could
got
still
somebody to dump off to.
yeah, so I think and I think Zach was talking about that when he was last on about those rookie guys, those younger guys utilize players like that, especially as they're developing themselves. So Komet could be a good tight end option still, even with Fields out. So you might be putting
Yeah.
him in moving forward. But but yeah, Andy, congrats! You got your victory. You're feeling a bit better about yourself. Glenn is on a slide, so Glenn's trying to get stuff turned around. We'll see if week 9 he can get that accomplished. Next up, we actually have two brothers from another mother, and that would be Casey versus Zach. So we had the Casey's Aces versus Mahomes Slice. And Casey, I mean, he almost won by 30, more so because of unfortunate play on Zach by Zach's team more than great play from Casey's squad. But yeah, you mentioned Mahomes earlier and having a really tough game. I mean, 6 points from Mahomes when he was projected for 30
Yes.
projected for 30 and he gets 6. I mean, that just
That's a
hurts your
killer.
heart. Yeah, that hurts. And at one point, I don't know if you saw it, but on Zach's team, literally, Mike Evans goes out, Drake London goes out, Darren Waller goes out. And like all these things just pile on to that heartache that you're already that you're
Snowballed him.
feeling.
Snowballed him.
Man, man. Just
I will say one thing about Kansas City is I have Mahomes in my other league. Kansas City, to me, they haven't found what they want to do yet.
sure.
I don't know why they don't take Pacheco and pound him running. That'll open up the pass, but it's almost like they bounce around too much and they don't get anybody in a rhythm.
And I like what you're saying there actually. And it's interesting because it's different than I guess basketball in that sense because in basketball, like I was a point guard, and for me it was all about just distributing it out to everybody, getting everybody in the flow of the game. Everybody's touching the ball. We're all doing that, and so when you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, they kind of do it similar to that. But to your point, that also means that in football, it's a much different sport than basketball because you're not constantly going. And so if I'm only getting four now, this is not Pacheco because he gets more runs, but if you're a receiver, most of the receivers get what 4 targets a game, like all of them, all of them get four or
Well, the
five a
only one
game.
that they really want to throw to is Kelsey. So,
Yeah,
shit,
so it is
there
very
you go.
weird.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that's I mean, because technically it's just kind of been Reed's style of play, maybe with especially with the Chiefs and like how they run their offense. Do you feel like they're just not willing to go to more of a not necessarily run heavy, but run so that way you can play off of that with some play action? Do you feel like they
Yeah.
just seem to be reluctant to do that? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
It sure seems like it, don't it?
Yeah. And Pacheco, man, oh, good runner. Like,
I love that guy.
yeah. You just like to watch him play. But you're right; it's been a very weird year, and I mentioned it. Their defense is better than it's been in the past, and so therefore that could also be something that's hindering Mahomes because he doesn't have to do as much. But think about this past game; they lost it. And I know he wasn't feeling well; he had a flu and all that stuff. So I mean that factors in. So I don't want to poop on him too much here, but at the end of the day, like in a game where their defense finally gave up more points, that they'd have to throw. He had his worst game yet of the season, so very very odd on that end. On Casey's side, had some. kind of, I wouldn't say weird stuff, but Devonte Adams, I don't know what is going on in Las Vegas, but
Quarterback.
yeah, they're ruining this guy. I mean, they're what's the point of having a great wide receiver like that if you ain't going to use him?
I have him on my in my other league, and you do not have a quarterback that can throw to him as the quarterback in Chicago hurting that receiver.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. If you can't get him the ball, he can't do anything with it.
Well, last year, Derek Carr was able, he's a good deep ball thrower and he got him the ball deep. I mean, how many, if anybody remembers from last year that maybe watched those games, there were so many deep broken plays that were Devonte Adams. I'd love to go back and look at how many 40-plus-yard receiving touchdowns he had, but I'd have to say it was a handful, and that's a lot in a season. To have like
Yeah.
4 or 5 40-plus-yard touchdowns in a season is a lot. You might get on average from a good wide receiver two. Like it doesn't happen that often, but he did it a lot because Derek Carr could get him the ball downfield. But you're right, quarterbacks they have now, and to me, it's why Josh McDaniels was fired today. So Josh McDaniels got fired today. Long time, I shouldn't even say long time coming. I just hate him. He's a terrible coach. He does when he was at Denver, he sucked. He was not a
Yeah.
good coach when he
Yeah.
coached for Denver. I didn't want him on the Colts anyways, but how he handled the Colts situation where he accepted the Colts head coaching job and then basically a couple days later like decided, no, I don't want to do it. Never mind. That was another one like, fuck you, you piece of garbage. And then he goes, and I guess I just didn't want him to succeed, and he has shown he doesn't. He's not a good head coach in this league. And yeah, I don't know, but you're right. Something's got to give for Devontae Adams because that's hurting Casey in that sense. But Casey, 5-3, doing just fine. Got a
Yeah.
good squad. I mean, other than QB question, he's got another question this coming week because now they're on bye. But other than that, man, he's got Casey's doing pretty well. So kudos to you, brother. Kudos.
And and he's got some good players waiting to play.
Yeah,
He's got good players on the bench.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, the funny part is, and Jahan Dotson, he blew up this week. That was his finally he got into the action with Washington. Hopefully he gets more action with the Washington Commanders. He's a nice, good young talent, only a second year in the league, shown he could be one of the top receivers in this league if he's with the right offense. Um, but Marquise Brown, like you talk about his bench, Devonta Smith, that's a great wide receiver. Having on your bench,
Yeah.
Marquise Brown, number one wide receiver for Arizona. He's got Kyler Murray probably coming back soon. Another great option. Colton Sutton's actually had a much better year than people realize. So he does have a lot of talent there. So he could be a scary team to go up against. Coming up, and he's going to continue on. I see him in the playoffs. That's going to be a tough team. It's going to be one that you don't want to face.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
lots of talent there, man. But nice victory, Casey, off to 5-3. Zach got a win last week, but not this past week. So back to it, but back to the grind, right? Now we'll get to your game. This was the game of the week. I know Zach had kind of called it that, and I agreed with him. To me, it actually showed to be that. You both had, as far as like a game would go, besides Kyle and EJ, this was the next game that had two basically scores over 120. Tell me about the game. How'd you feel? What were your thoughts as you were going through the day?
Well, I guess wasn't impressed with the way they played Pacheco,
Yeah.
and DJ Moore don't have a quarterback that can throw to him.
Nope. Not
And
deep.
everybody else I thought did okay.
Yeah.
When you got your defense going to score you more points than half your other team, well, shit.
Dude, your
Something's got to give,
defense,
but
they got to easily be the number one defense. I don't know if there's any defense that's close to the Cowboys in fantasy football right now. I don't know.
Bob's, man, there you go again. You had players that were just knocking it out of the park.
Dude, his bench would have beat every like if literally if he just played his bench, it would have beat and your bench is one less player. His bench would have outscored every other team except for Allison and EJ. And that's one less player.
Yes,
Like every you're right, every single player like had a great game.
they did.
It was yeah. Sometimes those weeks happen.
And I think, well, I think I hung with him for a while, and then I
Yep.
think it was maybe Henry. I didn't expect Henry to do what he did, and he turned it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And there kind of went the distance, and then it was lights out from there.
Yeah, and that was he had good performance from everybody. I mean, except for T. Higgins, and even T. Higgins got close to his projection. It was a that game itself was more Jamar Chase than it was for Higgins. But San Francisco showing they're beatable in that fashion. I know he was like, "Oh man, I sat DeAndre Hopkins. You ain't playing." How DeAndre's played so far this year, I wouldn't have played him either. It's been a rough one, and you don't know what Will Levis is going to do.
Yeah,
But yeah, anybody else on his team was like, no, you can't really change it. I mean, they all did well, but you can't really change what he did. I mean, he got the victory, did really well, and Bob's another scary team. I mean, I look at both of your teams here, and I see two scary teams. I mean, to me, you've got players on your bench that do well. I mean, even Ferguson. Ferguson's a good tight end, man, but you don't need him. You got Mark Andrews. It's tough. You're not going to really play Ferguson ever, but shoot, whenever Andrews has his bye, Ferguson getting targets.
yeah, yeah. He's getting more now.
And that's all you can ask for. Honestly, when it comes to a tight end in fantasy football, if I can find a guy that's going to get me 5 or 6 targets a game, and I'm talking targets, I'm not saying catches, I'm saying targets, because I just need you to catch 3 or 4 balls. Maybe one of them's an end zone
Yeah,
target, and you get a touchdown. That's what you need. So doing well there. Both teams did well. You got the L this week, but you played well. I mean, you would have beat again you would have beat everybody except for EJ, Allison, and Bob. I mean, otherwise you'd have won. You were
no,
fourth
Bob did an
best in
excellent
points.
job, man. He put together a good roster.
Yeah. So and still doing well. So nice job to both of you. Sorry you took the L, but both teams are still pushing forward. I mean, you can't score 160 every week, Louis. I'm just saying.
You're
Okay,
right.
you can't do it, Lordy. But nice job. And then last but not least, we had our nail biter of the week. And this was Suck a Dick, so Sam against myself, the Denzel Winningtons. And this was, it's my brother-in-law. I've taken a couple jabs at him this year. I know I did call his team the worst number one team in America at one point, and I he's kind of had a similar path as EJ, where these guys like him and EJ both like they have these big, huge weeks, and then they kind of have weeks that just where they can't get close to like they're just not performing well. It's very weird how both of them go. It feels like they're not at the 115 mark consistently. They're either at 140 plus or they're at like 90. And
Yeah,
that's how it's kind of felt. So it's been very weird for that. But I will say, from my perspective, I did not like watching that San Francisco Cincinnati game because it felt like everything was either Joe Mixon or Jamar Chase. Like I'm not
yeah.
kidding. At one point I was like, "What?" I was like, "I cannot see this happen." He's gonna hop on me, man. It was definitely rough. Uh, Kind of following that, and I didn't perform well. My team didn't do very well. Um, uh, I made the decision to play Rasheed Rice over Chris Godwin. That was my choice. It was either those. That was the only decision I really was making, except for Dalton Kincaid. I did pick him up earlier in the week, but I decided literally an hour before that game happened that I was going to play Dalton Kincaid on Thursday night instead of Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas had himself a good game. He didn't do it as well as Kincaid, but he got pretty close. So Kincaid had a good game, but I barely squeaked by, man. When Laporta, I saw that next morning, Laporta didn't quite reach it, but he did well. Another good tight end, young guy is playing well. But any takeaways that you had from this game or any thoughts on the teams?
You know, I thought Foreman would have been done better than he done. Coming off that big game that he had,
Yep.
and he just I think it hurts splitting the backs like they're splitting the backs now because
Yeah.
they just don't get the rhythm that they need to get.
Well, and they were even throwing Darrington Evans in there at times. And I guess for me, I just look at it like it's a rarity that you need to use the third running back, and I don't understand
Yes,
it. I kind of look at it like Roshan is your, receiving back, and he can get some runs every once in a while, and Foreman's going to be your main guy, right? Why do you need to even throw in Evans in snaps and in plays? Like, I don't get it at times. And maybe I'm not, and you've been a coach before, so maybe from the coaching angle, it's, hey, both, Foreman's a little banged up in this moment. He's got to walk something off, and Roshan's coming off because he's winded. Maybe that's what ends up happening. So you throw the third guy in, but yeah, even that didn't make much sense. But I don't remember how that game flowed. But did the Chargers get up like early? Were the Chargers like up on the Bears like heavy early maybe, and that's where they just didn't run the ball as
I
much? I
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't know if they were or not.
Because the Chargers don't have a great defense. It's not a good defense.
No, no.
And actually, passing wise, I think they're like one of the worst defenses in the league against the pass. And against the rush, they're like middle of the road, maybe at best, you know?
You take Christian McCaffrey. They hand him the rock about all that they can.
Yeah.
And what's he do? He gets better as the game goes on.
Yeah. Another guy I
These
like to
other guys
watch.
aren't getting that. They're not getting it. They're not getting it.
And that's true. But that's where actually I like Joe Mixon on the other end, right? Like in that same game, Joe Mixon, he's getting the run. Like they're not
Yeah,
trying to throw out a bunch of other running backs. And you know, these running back by committee, I'm with you. I don't like it as much. I don't think it, like you said, gets a guy in a rhythm. And there are certain players that's like they get better as the game goes on. Marshawn Lynch gets
that's
better
right.
as the game goes on. Derrick
Yeah,
Henry gets better as the game goes on.
exactly.
Like that's where these guys do come into play. And especially with big body guys like a Foreman, like a Gus Edwards, like these kind of players. Because as you know, like they're wearing down the other end. Like they're wearing them down with their own size. So that's where that can really play a big role in why you got to get him the ball a little bit more. But you're right. Foreman did not get as much. And the only other thing I want to mention about this game is one player, Chris Olave. I mean, Derek Carr did wonders for Devontae Adams last year, and it seems like him and Chris Olave don't have a connection. And the deep balls that Derek Carr is throwing are to Rashid Shaheed. They're not even to Chris Olave. I mean, Derek Carr, they've had him mic'd up, and you'll hear it. He's calling for Rashid Shaheed. That's his man. If he's going to throw a deep pass, it's going to be Shaheed that is going for it. And shoot, Shaheed himself, even though he never gets played because you don't know what's going to happen, he only gets like 3 catches, but but he gets 3 catches for 80 yards is what ends up
Well, I
happening. But
think he
yeah,
got 150 yards on 3 of them this last weekend
yes, best game of his
and a
career so
touchdown.
far. Yeah, and a big tutty. But yeah,
Yeah,
the answer to Olave, I don't know what it is, and I think that's also hurting Sam a little bit of not getting consistent play from who you expected to be the wide receiver one for a team that's going to throw the ball. And Derek Carr's had games where he's thrown the ball 50 times, and even Olave in those games has done just okay. So I don't
what
know.
about Thomas? Michael
Uh,
Thomas.
he's still getting. I mean, he gets what? Sure, I think Kyle has him, and he's basically getting 9, 10 fantasy points a game because he's doing what Thomas is now there for, which I guess is like 6 catches for 50 yards. He's the new Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. He's getting that kind of play, but that's where I actually like their receiver construction, Louis. I think Michael Thomas is your over the middle kind of 5 to 10 yard guy. Like that's where his zone is. Olave runs more intermediate deep, and Shaheed is pretty much deep. So I
Yeah.
feel like they've got a good set of receivers that can run these different routes, and they have tight ends like Jawan Johnson and Taysom Hill that are getting some run there too. But they've actually been a fairly poor offense on the year so far. I think they're like their like implied team total for betting, like what they're putting on them to say, hey, they're going to score this many points. I think they've only hit it like once out of the 8 weeks. Like it's not even they're just not doing so hot. And part of that's Derek Carr. He got hurt, I know, with his shoulder. He had the AC joint issue and couldn't throw very well. And hopefully he's getting back to it. Maybe I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him, so I can't comment too much. But it'd be good to see Olave do a little bit better. And for me, Zay Flowers, I'd like to see Zay Flowers as a rookie getting a little bit better. But he was
Yeah,
like 5 catches for under less than 20 yards this week. You can't that
yeah.
don't do it. But that wraps up week 8. It was an interesting week. Like I said, a lot of points scored, but a lot of disparity within our scores, as you all saw. 24 of our 6 games were decided by over 25 points, and so little bit of an interesting week. But nice job, everybody, and congrats to those who won, and for those who took a loss. Hopefully, for some of you, you had a good showing. So just know, hey, don't do anything different. Don't change the process. You're doing well. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You
How
know.
you lose, get in the back seat, figure it out. I'm in
Exactly.
there.
Exactly. All right. Well, before we hop into the rest, we have our injury report with Dr. Sam, and we keep getting sponsors, Louie. Louie, they just keep they're just flooding in. I have to let them know I can only do one a show,
Okay.
so I just do the one. But we were getting a lot. Even next week, I got them lined up, Bluey. Don't worry, I got them lined up even for next week. But this week, for our show, we got a really special sponsor, and it is Glenn's Brewcade. Glenn's been playing pinball since he was 6, and has loved craft beer since he was 10. While enjoying both things in his basement one night, Glenn had the idea to open an adult-only arcade, and the rest is history. Now, adults in their 30s come from all over to relive their childhood, get drunk, and break a joystick when the game doesn't go their way. Although the Stevens family never gets upset when a game doesn't go their way, many other families struggle with this emotion. That's why every Glenn's Brewcade has a timeout room with 4 corners to go sit and pout in. Whether you're a gracious winner or a sore loser, playing your next group outing that's guaranteed to not suck by calling Glenn's Brewcade at 309-426-3687. That's 309 Game Over. Glenn's Brewcade. Let the games begin.
Nice, Glenn.
Oh, yeah, and thank you, Glenn. Thank you for that, man. That was a really nice sponsor there. Didn't have to do it, but we appreciate you. Thank you very, very much. Now, again, Louis, I've said it before. Sam has no say over any of these sponsors, even though they, go into his segment. But he has shared that he's very appreciative of all the sponsorship dollars that he is receiving because of it. So thank you to all those sponsors that really help support Dr. Sam and what he's doing.
All right, Dr. Sam.
So, Dr. Sam, what does the injury report look like this time?
I think he's got his nurse on.
Louis, I'm pausing it.
Okay.
You know why?
There's
Because
no
there's no sound.
no voice.
No voice, and I can't do that because he did such a good job. I'm sorry, Sam. All right, we're gonna start this all over. Okay, hold on, hold on. Go back, go back. There we go. I'm so sorry to everybody. We got to do it this way, though. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the
There
Week
we go.
8 injury report with your host, Nurse Haley. It was a bad week to be a quarterback, as Vikings starter Kirk Cousins left the game with an Achilles injury. He will be out for the remainder of the season. Lucky for Greg, Kenny Pickett, quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, was sidelined with a rib injury. Reports are showing that he should be good to play this Thursday night against the Titans. Tyrod Taylor, backup quarterback for the New York Giants, also left the game with a rib injury and was held overnight in the hospital for observation. Although he has been cleared to play, Daniel Jones is slated to return from his neck injury this week. Matthew Stafford, quarterback for the LA Rams, left the game with a thumb injury that was confirmed to be a UCL sprain. His status is considered day to day, but it's important to note that the Rams have a bye week coming up in week 10, so they may look to sit him in their week 9 matchup. Jalen Hurts, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, has a bone bruise. However, he is not expected to miss time. This may lead to rushing for the mobile quarterback. Less rushing. Desmond Ritter, quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, has been put in concussion protocol. It's clear that the Falcons are starting Taylor Heineke this week. Wide receiver for the New England Patriots, Kendrick Bourne, sustained an ACL injury and will be out for the remainder of the season. Another wide receiver for the New England Patriots, Devontae Parker, was removed from the game after a scary hit to the head and neck area. Likely for him to sit this week as the league has been slowly returning players after concussions and hits to the head. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver for the Washington Commanders, left the game with a toe injury. There is not much of an update at this point. Samuel is not likely to miss time. However, he may show a dip in production depending on how this week of practice goes. Darren Waller, tight end for the New York Giants, has sustained another hamstring injury, which is just another in the long line of hamstring issues. Waller rushed back from the same injury last year, so look for them to take this one a little slower. Drake London, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, sustained a groin injury. Although this injury did not seem very severe, London did not practice on Wednesday, so it's likely out for this week's game. However, practice plans should be followed to see the progression. Derrick Henry, running back for the Tennessee Titans, has been listed with an ankle injury. Although most likely a low ankle sprain, he may see less carries with a normal efficiency level due to his age. Look for Justin Jefferson, Devon David Montgomery, and Deebo Samuel to all likely return in week 10. Bye.
Well, okay. That was good. That was what Dr. Sam said is his Halloween edition of the injury report with Nurse. Uh, I'm sorry, Nurse Haley, but she seemed to be over it. Like halfway through that, she was like hand on the face. All right, this keeps going. So nice job. Thank you, Nurse Haley, for stepping in for Dr. Sam in the Halloween edition of the injury report. There were a lot of injuries, though. I will say that a lot of QB injuries happened during this week. As they mentioned, Kirk Cousins out for the year, the remainder of the season. Um, you had like Matthew Stafford, I know, had a thumb injury that got hit multiple times on different plays, and so he may not even play this coming week. Jalen Hurts seems to be fine, so I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. Tyrod Taylor, I feel for him because if you recall, it was only I think 2 or 3 years ago now that remember that scary thing where he actually got the whole reason that Justin Herbert got to play in his rookie year was Tyrod Taylor was the starting quarterback for the Chargers. But in his like first game, or it was either the first game or the second game, he was getting an injection to his ribs to like numb the pain, and the needle went like too far in the wrong spot, and they punctured his lung.
Oh
And so that
boy.
was why Justin Herbert ended up playing, because it was like an emergency start for Justin
Yeah.
Herbert because they had to rush Tyrod Taylor to the hospital. So like I'm hoping for Tyrod Taylor's sake that he is okay, because I've actually liked him as a general player. I don't think he's a great player, but he has done well for himself. I think he makes it on so many teams because he's actually, if you watch him play, like he shows signs that he's not a terrible player. To me, he is a backup kind of guy, but I just feel for a guy like that who seems like a good guy, who seems to not be getting the breaks. And when he finally gets his chance, his opportunity, and has done actually decently well, it's like something happens that like
Yeah.
hurts him in the end. So feel for that guy. But yeah, a lot of injuries to work around this week and a lot of buys. I want to say we have 4 teams on bye this week, including San Francisco and Detroit. That hurts me badly, badly. But let's go on. We did waivers last week, or I did that show already. So we're going to talk about Trade Central. Okay, so Denzel is here, the equalizer, kind of talking about
You
trading.
don't
That's what
like
he's
donuts, Greg.
yeah, he's talking about how big the jumbo donut was. Like the jumbo donut was like this big. It was like this big. Okay. Um, but in all honesty, he's in this moment, he's talking to them about, one player or one manager thinks that my players are right here, another manager thinks they're back here, and we got to find that middle. That's what he's saying right there. I know it. I just know that's what Denzel is talking about. But from your perspective, as somebody who has only played fantasy football, this is now your second year, so you're only a year and a half into this game. I was getting ready to call it a sport. It's not a sport; it's a game that we play. We play a game; they play a sport. So, but being newer to this, how do you approach trading? Do you like to trade? Like, what do you think about it as a manager of your team? Like, how do you approach this game? And is trading something that you're okay with?
I guess I think last year you and I traded once.
Did we?
And
Okay. Okay.
and
Sounds
I think
cool.
that was the only time that I ever have. I usually go and try to find a player that is still out there that I can pick up that I think will do good.
Like in free
But
agency, you're saying in free
yes,
agency?
exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
And it's as far as the trading goes, I really don't want to insult anybody by putting somebody out there and they're going, man, what the hell's that? you know?
You're
So
saying what Denzel is saying right now. You're like, I don't want it to be like I've put him here, but really they're
yeah.
down here. That's what you're saying.
So I've kind of shied away from it really.
Now, okay, I think that's a kind of a good point that you've made. And I think it's a good point because are you like nervous in that? Does that sound, maybe that's like the wrong word, but if I hear you correctly, you're kind of saying like, hey, I don't want to insult somebody, and therefore like is it more of like not feeling as confident in what the value is, player versus player or position versus position?
Well, I think I would my thought is I'd like to kind of take care of my own problem.
Okay.
And if I can find them in free agency, that's what I would much rather do.
And I will
And
say you have been the absolute best at that I have seen. So that strategy has worked well for you. But to do that, as you mentioned in the top of this show or this podcast, like you're looking on pretty much daily and kind of
every
looking at
day,
that free agency to say, okay, what's happening?
every day.
So that's been helpful for you in that sense too, to say, hey, I'm not going to really trade because I can find them in free agency. I can find
Yeah.
somebody off the pile, and you've actually done very well to do that. So I can see it. I just think of a good example for me as to where like to kind of put myself back into like more of a novice's shoes in fantasy football. Like I've been really considering doing a dynasty league. And a dynasty league is it's you literally draft a team in the very beginning. So if we just let's just say we all decide to start a dynasty league, we would draft a full team, but you actually draft like 25 to 30 players. You don't draft
Wow.
just your, 8, 15, 16 players. And that's because this is now your team. We don't draft again next year. We don't draft anymore. This is your team. The only thing we do moving forward is every year we have the rookie draft, just like they do in the NFL and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's a much different way to play the game. There's a lot more involved in regards to a player's age, salary that they're currently on, their contract, that kind of stuff. There's a lot like that I don't understand, to where the value in our style of league, which is considered a redraft league because we redraft every single year, the difference between a dynasty and a redraft is actually a big difference. Whereas you kind of mentioned Alvin Kamara doing great. You would think he'd be a top option in any fantasy football because he's a great player. Well, but he's actually technically on the older side of a running back because he's 28, 29, and that's starting to downfall their career. Where in redraft, I'd love to go after him. He's the top 5 guy, right? Like you'd love him. Whereas in dynasty, he's probably looked at more like a running back 15. You know what I mean? And so like don't feel confident. I don't feel like I can make somebody a trade that I'm gonna feel good about and that I don't don't feel like I'm gonna get completely, raked over the coals for.
Well, and I go to the free agency because I guess I kind of want to test myself too.
Okay.
I want to see if I can pick up a good player and bring that player in and play him, or if I made a mistake and I need to get rid of him
Sure.
and find somebody else. So that's kind of the fun part for me.
I like that. And you did it last year. You did a great job last year. You've done a great job this year. I mean, I think Adam Thielen has been, just for fantasy football in general, has been a huge surprise and a guy who has like overperformed like crazy. And you picked him up in free agency. You said, "Hey, this is a guy that can get. He's going to get 7, 8 targets a game. He should be on a roster." So I like that. So I can understand that, but that's where I feel like a lot of people are with leagues that are new to it, and to your point, like some might that's just how they want to manage it. That's how they
Yeah,
want to do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I'm all for it. You manage your team how you see fit, and you gotta that's kind of the joy of even our league is not having any trade vetoes and things like that. Is manage your team as you see fit. That's what you got to do.
I
So
agree 100%.
and just to wrap up Trade Central, keep up the trade offers and all that kind of stuff. I've been hearing about them. People are talking about it. People are trying to make moves, and it's just when you realize the percentage of offers made versus offers accepted, I'm going to say at best 5% of offers are accepted. That's kind of like at best amongst all the offers that are made. And
Yeah,
we've had what 3 or 4 trades, and I guarantee you, Louis, there's probably been at least 50 thrown out in total in our league. There's been a lot of like talk with it. So it's tough for that to always happen. But thank you for sharing your insight. I appreciate it.
well, cool.
Now we'll go to our comments of the week. I have mine on the screen, but you had shared one that you found to be the comment of the week. What was that that you liked
Oh,
from our text
when I
chain?
first saw it, I just laughed my ass off, and that was Andy with Charlie Brown. I won, I won. I could not help but just bust a gut on that one.
I know because you knew his excitement. He has been,
And I will say Bob's balloon thing.
yeah.
God damn it, but it was pretty good too.
I just thought it was a great, like, we're big fans of The Office, the show, so we already like Dwight Schrute, but yeah, it was perfectly done and
Perfectly timed.
yeah, that was just really nice. So shout out to Andy and to Bob, some well placed gifts this week. One day Denzel Gift will win it. I just know it, Louis. I just know it. I don't think so, but let's move on to this upcoming week's matchups. we always hit it up with the actual standings, and nothing has actually changed in our standings from last week except for Andy and Tyler flip flopping at the bottom in the West. But otherwise, the East has stayed exactly the same in the exact same order. And then the West top four spots haven't moved there either. So, kind of keeping the same standings as we did from week to week, but there are some teams that are closer based on what they've been able to do. As you can see in the East and in the West, you have a team at the top at 6-2, and then two teams right behind them at 5-3. So that's going on there. Actually, my bad. Allison is 6-2 as well. So you and Allison are
Yes.
right there, but you're well ahead in points against her. So that's why you have the edge there. But both teams have three teams at the top that are above 500. And then in the East, we got two teams at 3-5 and one at 2-6. And in the West, you got a 4-4, a 2-6, and a 1-7. So a little more disparity there at the bottom of the West. But a lot of teams still doing well, and even some of those teams at the bottom that got a loss this week are really more unfortunate losses because they performed well, like a Kyle or a Tyler,
Yeah.
performing well this week. So nice job, and now let's see what we can do for week 9. The first one that I have up here is actually Allison versus Casey. So I'll try to see if I can move us around so you can see some of the projections here. Casey's hasn't set his full lineup. He's still got a QB question now. So he got Brock Purdy last week in a trade, but unfortunately, he is on bye. So Purdy is now on bye. And I don't know. I think Deshaun Watson is not going to play this week either, from what they said. And that's Casey's
Was
current
that his
backup.
backup?
Yep. So Casey's going to have to find somebody else in waivers. But Casey, don't worry. I sent a waiver video yesterday. So, you watch it. Most of those quarterbacks, if not all of them, are still around. So you
Well,
can,
tell him don't take Garoppolo.
yeah, Crapolo. Is that what you called him?
Yep, yep, he's benched.
Yeah, don't take him. But there are a couple on there, Casey, I think that would work out pretty well. No, one was taken. I forgot. One was taken. He's one I would have suggested. Andy grabbed Derek Carr. So he grabbed him from waivers. So you don't have him, but you do have maybe a couple other options you can choose from, Casey. So you have to pick out that. Um, but Casey is missing Amon Ra, who is normally a very consistent top receiver for him. And then he's going to be searching for a quarterback. So he's kind of in the weeds there a little bit with that. And on Allison's side, her same squad kind of rolling right out there. The only one that I have concern with is maybe Puka. And that's really more because he's questionable. I think he has an injury, and we'll see how well he could play this week. But I'm assuming she's got some sort of backup for that. She's got a pretty good team there. Anything that you're looking for in this matchup that
I
I
think
haven't highlighted?
I think watch Allison's tight end.
Okay,
I think he's going to do good.
man, I like him. I I don't know. Everett gets more snaps than he does when they're both healthy. But man, do I like Donald Parham. Like he is
Yes.
big guy too. He's like 6'8", 240. He's a big dude. But he played well. He looked good in that game. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
I like him a lot. I guess Casey's tight end is okay. He's all right, but yeah,
Uh,
but Allison's is pretty darn good. But this should be a pretty good matchup. We'll see what Casey comes out with his quarterback and what he's going to do to replace Amon Ra. But he's got Devonta Smith on his bench as we saw, so he can easily plug him in there, and he'll be just fine with a Devonta Smith as well. So I think he'll do well. This could be a pretty close matchup this week, I'm guessing. After that, we have Dats Eki, Glenn going up against Bob. Uh, I put QB decision for Glenn as well because Matthew Stafford probably I don't think he plays. I don't know. With a thumb injury like that to your throwing hand, I just don't see how you play.
I heard
But
probably not.
yeah, and so what that means for Glenn is it means another quarterback that's injured on his team because he had Anthony Richardson, he got injured. I know he drafted Kyler Murray, ended up dropping him to pick up, I think, Stafford, and now Stafford's now injured. So he's having a real struggle here getting a QB to stay healthy for him. So that's kind of a tough there. But Bob is rolling out another good squad. When you got Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill, you got players there that are just going to dominate. I mean, already, and the Ravens defense still number 2 defense in the fantasy
Yeah.
football league outside of Dallas. I mean, it goes Dallas is number 1, and then Ravens are number 6, and everybody else is underneath that. But anything you note from this matchup, or anything you're looking for?
I'm kind of curious about the Miami quarterback. What's going to happen there? That's a
Yeah,
long flight. Is that going to mess with them? I don't know.
I
I don't
know.
think I don't think you're ever going to do anything with Hill. That guy's just talent on talent, man.
He's great, and he's 30. He's 30. I wish I could 30-year-old could run that way, man. He's
Man.
just a good player, and he actually said he's one of his. I guess I think Allison was telling me this, but he said he'll play flag football in the 2028 Olympics. So that'd be awesome. And I think technically, from what he previously said, he'll be retired at that point. He won't even be in the NFL.
Yeah.
So he's going to be retired. But yeah, if that guy's on our flag football team, I think we'll do just fine.
I think Bob's got a he put
He's got a
together a
big
good team.
tough squad.
Yes.
Like I think Bob should be better than 4-4 based on his squad. I think he just
Me
had some
too.
tough games, and he's got a good team. So he's doing just fine. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough challenge for Glenn. We'll see if he can get something in there at quarterback, because I don't think it's going to be Stafford, but it's going to be a tough one for Glenn to climb out of, because even Amari Cooper, he hasn't had Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball. He's had PJ Walker, or now it might be this Thompson guy, Thompson something or other. I don't know, but that's gonna be a tough one for even his top receiver. So it's gonna be a rough one for Glenn here.
If you lose that chemistry, man, you're about done.
Yep, agreed. As you know, it's all timing, especially with those
Yep.
round. I mean, it's about timing. So that's huge. But that'll be a tough one for Glenn. I'll say this. I see Bob winning this matchup pretty handily. But Glenn, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All right, then we got me and Andy. This is gonna be a close one. So I don't have, to me, the number 1 player in fantasy football, which is Christian McCaffrey. I know he doesn't technically score the most points in our league based on like position, because quarterbacks will do that. But I was looking at it, Louis. First off, his lowest game of the season so far is just under 15 points. It's like 14 point something. That's his worst game. Terrible game for CMC, right? But 6 of his 8 games have been 25 points or more. I mean, for a running back, I mean, that's huge. And it's every week that you're getting that production. Like you said, they're giving him the ball. He's not just touching it on the ground, he's getting passes.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to cover. Plus, it would have happened anyways, but I still don't have David Montgomery back, and they're on bye. So he'll come back in week 10. I'm hoping. I'm freaking crossing my fingers. So I got to throw Tyler Algier in there as my RB2. And James Cook, I already don't love as my RB1. I mean, I'm looking at James Cook as an RB2 or RB3. So going to be a tough day for me with the running backs. I'll say that. And I got to hope that Lamar just turns into another running back. That's what I got to
You,
hope for.
you know what's going to happen there? I think the Seattle Baltimore game is going to be a high scoring game,
Yeah.
and that's what you got to hope for. Because if it's high scoring, hell, Lamar might get in the end zone a couple times himself.
Yeah. And I'm thinking the same. So that's where you're right. That's the game that will matter in the end of it, because he's got Seattle's defense going. I don't know if he's going to keep them going against Lamar, but he might, you know. So it's up to
Keegan
say.
Allen, that guy he never quits.
No, he does not. Come on in, Tage. Yeah, he does not. He just keeps going and doing his thing. He's doing well. Tager, are you getting ready for bed? Yeah. Not right now. What are you talking about? You're in your bedtime stuff. Are you gonna say hi to everybody? Say hi, everybody, and Louie. Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
sweetie.
Yeah, you tired and ready for the bed? Yeah. Can I give you a big hug real quick? I gotta finish this up. Okay. I love you.
Did you mess it up?
I didn't mess it up. Well, I did mess it up, yeah, but
Did you mess it up?
earlier. Don't touch it. I did mess it up earlier
Why?
because I didn't have the sound on with the video and all. Louis knows all about it. Louis knows, but all right, I love you, girl.
Don't want him.
I'll be done here in a few
You
minutes.
can't
Maybe
see
I'll
him
get to
anyhow.
say good night to you. Better, okay?
I don't want him.
Okay, you don't want to. Fine, that's fine. That's good. She's got it. She's got it.
Don't even say goodnight.
Hello. Hello.
That's Willie.
Hey, Willie. You see?
Willie's going to Germany soon.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Why is that?
Is that the dog?
Well, Willie don't belong to us, but we've had him a year.
Really?
We're watching my nieces. Greg, we started with 2.
Okay.
Well, we had to put 1 down, but this little prick is holding on.
Well, sorry you had to put one down. So they both around the same age?
Well, now the other one was 19 and he's 15.
Jeez, Lord.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. My goodness.
Good night.
Good night, Taser Bear. Oh, good night. I love you. Man, I did just see they like the oldest dog, like the world record for oldest dog just passed away. Did you see that?
No, how old?
31.
Oh, geez.
Right? It was
No,
31-year-old dog. My
no kidding.
goodness. So that guy might hang around a little while longer. You don't know, man.
Well, he's going to hang around in Germany because he's leaving here.
When's he go? When does he go to Germany?
The 17th.
Okay. Yep. You only got like 2 more weeks and then
Yep.
you're out of there.
And
Are
I'm
you
happy.
excited? I was gonna say, you happy about that? Yeah. Oh man. It's funny. I love our dogs to death, but there are times, especially with Tage now, where you're like, I just don't feel like I have the time, have all that responsibility, because it's a responsibility. I don't want to just not, take care of the dogs in a fashion and
Yeah.
just whatnot. Um, but yeah, but even when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, but they're also the ones that get me out and about and walking and doing more
Yeah.
stuff than I probably normally would. So I think there's some downside that I don't even think about, that they get me out and about, man. They get me active and doing something else too. So, but yeah, we'll get back to the game. We were talking about Derek Carr. I mentioned that he had picked him up. So Derek Carr is the starting quarterback for Andy. CeeDee Lamb had a huge game last week. I don't know if that would continue, but I will say that Aaron Jones hasn't performed very well, and Bijan's been a little bit down lately, also. So, been a interesting one on that, but it'll be a close matchup. And you're right, that Baltimore Seattle game, that'll be where this matchup lies for us for the most
I
part.
think so. Yeah.
So, go Baltimore. And you want the same, because you need Mark Andrews to do stuff. So
You know what? I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Another guy that's carried himself well. He knows his value. He has, really done I think right by himself and his team. I mean, I just like him a lot.
Yeah.
And he's turned into a much better quarterback than people were giving him credit for, and I love that. So good for him. All right, next up, Kyler and Tyler. That's what we got. But I put on here, Kyle, any advice for last place? Kyle was there last year, so maybe Kyle's got some advice for Tyler over here. And Tyler's done well. As you see, his projection is up there. I mean, his projection is higher than
Yeah.
Kyle's. But if you actually look down, one of the things I like about this specific data that we see here is it shows projected, and it also shows what they actually average, though. So it's interesting that the projections of these two teams, you have Kyle projected lower than Tyler. However, the actual teams themselves and how they perform is like flipped. Whereas Tyler's team has kind of underperformed their projections, and Kyle's team that he has out there has outperformed their normal projection. So a little interesting thing there. But anything that you would note in this matchup that might be the difference maker?
Kareem Hunt.
Okay.
I like him. And I think he's about due. You know,
He
he
is.
come in late, but they've been playing him a little more, and he's
Yep.
getting stronger and stronger.
And
And
he goes up.
I don't think Ford is all that healthy, really.
Right. I would agree. And they're not going to give they're going to give most of the work to Kareem, and they're playing the Arizona Cardinals, who are not good, and they don't have their starting quarterback. So to me, yeah, I that's a good point that you're making there. That he's gonna get more run and probably outpace that projection that he's got there.
Yeah.
And for me, I think hopefully it's interesting. It's going to be that Buffalo Cincy game. They've got
Yeah.
dueling quarterbacks in that same game, but Tyler has that equalizer. He's got Stephon Diggs, which is the number one target for Josh Allen. So even if
Yeah.
Josh Allen goes off, unless it's to Gabe Davis or Dalton Kincaid, it's probably going to Stephon Diggs, and that could be an equalizer for Tyler to have over Josh Allen. I know
I
one
think
of the
you're
things
right.
that's and interestingly enough, one of the things that Sam had messaged me today, I played Sam this past week, and he had Gabe Davis, and I had and he mentioned how he didn't play Gabe Davis, for it, like, and he wished he kind of had, but kind of tough to say that. But when you're going up against, Josh Allen, but I would imagine when Sam goes up against Kyle, he'll probably play Gabe Davis to go up against Josh Allen. No, so like those are the things that we've talked about multiple times before, but that'll be an important matchup too. Will be that Buffalo Cincy game. So I think both these teams will be keeping an eye on it, and then both their projections are right next to each other. This will be a pretty good matchup here.
Yep, I think you're right.
And both teams have performed well lately. They just haven't gotten like all the W's, but Kyle and Tyler are kind of trending in the right direction. So
Yep.
this will be going to watch. I put on here Ricky and Bobby, and I say that because if you're not first like Sam, then you might be last like Zach here. So if you're not first, you're last, and that's what's happening this week so far. Sam does not have very good projection for his team. I don't know if he's making any adjustments. I think part of that is Jordan Addison with Minnesota. They're playing that rookie Hall, this week, and he didn't look so great. I mean, he's a rookie, so what can you expect? From that end. Kenny Pickett, he had mentioned, Nurse Haley had mentioned on her injury report that he should be back tomorrow. But I know he'd rather be playing Justin Fields than Kenny Pickett. That's when Sam was really winning a lot of those games, was
Yeah.
having some big things from Justin Fields. So this one, while Sam is first and Zach is last, I mean, it's I think going to be closer than we realize because of kind of how Sam's team has kind of dwindled slightly due to injury, unfortunately. Anything that you notate in this that might be the difference?
Well, I think Zach's going to be happy he kept Mahomes.
Yeah.
He's due for a good game.
Yeah, he's only had one real big game so
Yes.
far this year, and that's not like him. He usually has many, and they're going to have to keep up with Miami. So
It's going to be a high scoring game, I think. Either that or it's going to be a blowout.
yeah, and both those teams, Kansas City and Miami, are 6-2. I mean, they both are good teams.
Yeah.
I look forward to watching the second half of that game. I'll be frying donuts during the first half, but I'm looking forward to watching the second half of that game on Sunday
I
because
think
that
it'll
should be
be
a good
good.
one. But you're right. Like that's gonna be big. And Mike Evans, we'll see if he can turn around. He was a big. He's been a big performer for Zach earlier on, but he's had some tougher games the past couple. And you had mentioned Jerome Ford still not being healthy. What does that look like? They are playing the Arizona Cardinals, so it should hopefully be better. But who knows what that looks like? And I know just his backfield, he's not loving right now because he feels like he's got a lot of running back twos on a team rather than running
Yeah.
back ones on those teams. So that's always tough as well. All right.
It's going to be close, I think.
Yeah, this will be a close one. It'll be closer than what the records indicate. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. And then I believe this is the last matchup here. If I unless I got one more, but will EJ complete the triple crown? Do you know what I mean by that, Louis?
I don't think so. I think Louis going to complete it.
So that's true because you beat Andy. Oh, that's true. Maybe I should have put it as which team will complete
Yeah.
the Triple Crown in that family. That's actually really true because both of you have beaten Andy and Kyle. So we'll have to. Oh man, I didn't think about that. That's gonna be because I'd forgotten that you had already played Andy. I knew you had played Kyle because we kind of made a deal about you know Daddy beating his son, but but yeah, I didn't think about that. This will be a really interesting matchup. To me, this is my game of the week because you both have performed so well and have such high weeks. That this will be a really interesting one. He's anything that you're worried about, anything you're looking at to say, hey, this is a difference maker within our game. I know you've adjusted your team because you have DK Metcalf in the starting lineup.
I don't know. The Chicago quarterback, I don't think is going to help me out any. So I took the receiver out.
I
But
like it.
I think my top three have got to carry the rock. I think they got to go for. I'm looking for Jacobs to do good things because the Giants pretty much suck.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say that. They've performed a lot better as of late. They've actually been a much better defense as of late.
Yeah,
But so we'll have to see about that. But Jacobs gets the work. He gets the workload. He's getting 80-90% of the touches in that backfield. So that'll be big. And Mostert's been great, but he's had is Achane coming back this week? I don't remember if Nurse Haley told us that or not, but that'll be an interesting one as well. But you've got
this could either be a horse race or barely nothing, I guess.
I think it'll be a horse race. You've been consistent all year, whereas EJ's been up and down. So that'll be the interesting part. And I think part of that for him is choosing the right quarterback week to week. I think he's got the right one in. I think Dak against Philly is a good option because Philly really has not been great against the pass uh, this year so far. And he's even thrown Deontay Johnson, who's off of injury. I think this will be his like third game back, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a second, but at least his third game back, or at least the second game back, maybe his third. But he looked good this past week, got a lot of targets as well. So that'll be an interesting one there. So really interesting matchup here. And again, not only our Seattle game will make a difference, that Seattle Baltimore game will make a difference in this one too because you've got Mark Andrews and DK Metcalf in that same game. He has Gus Edwards going in that game. So
Yeah.
game script of that game, meaning will it become pass heavy for one side or the other? Will it stay close? If it stays close the whole time, then all options are could be doing stuff. But if either team kind of gets to a blowout, if Baltimore gets to a blowout, that might mean that's less Mark Andrews and more Gus Edwards at that point. But
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. But you've got the lean, you've got all, like most of the check marks. But this will be a very close matchup this week. So I'm paying attention to this one a lot, definitely. Any other parting notes before we bid everyone adieu?
No, thank you for having me on. It's been fun.
No, Louis, I appreciate it, man. You've been awesome. I've really enjoyed getting to know you through this league. I mean, it's how we kind of at least got to know each other, and you've been definitely one of the bright spots that I look forward to, and always have a good word to put in. I know when I see a message from Louis, it's got some impact to it. You don't bullshit around like I do. It's just sending fucking shit constantly. So I appreciate that, but. But Louis, thank you. I
Oh,
appreciate you
thank
hopping
you.
on. I'm glad you're feeling better. I know you missed last week. You weren't feeling well, so good to know that you're feeling much better. And soon, after this week, after week 9, you're going to have a new member on your team at your
Yes.
work.
Yep.
So
Can't
that's
wait.
exciting.
Can't wait.
Yeah. So nice job. Nice job today. Appreciate the all the insight that you've given. Good luck to you this week, and good luck to everybody else out there as well. All right, fam. We love you very much, and we wish you all luck. Everybody get a victory. Obviously everybody except for Andy. I don't need him to get a victory, but everybody
And
else.
Cheesehead.
Yeah, and EJ. We don't need those two getting victories here. But yeah, but thank you again, Louie. Take
You
care.
bet. Thank you, Greg.
All right, love y'all. All right, nice job, man.
Thank you, Greg.
Now I gotta go take care of a child who's whining and crying and doing all sorts of shit right now. I mean, it's a struggle.
Father's duties, brother.
I know, and I am the one that kind of lays down more of the law in it, and she respects that a lot more. But as you know, got to do it. That's my
You
role.
got it. I
Not the fun
appreciate it,
part,
Greg.
but it is. Hey, man, appreciate you too, Louie. I love you, and
Love
enjoy
you
the
too,
rest of
man.
your week. Okay.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.